Carlos Alcaraz's wrist gave out. Jannik Sinner packed his bags after the second round. And suddenly the path to a 25th Grand Slam title looked clearer than it had in years for Novak Djokovic. Roland Garros 2026 was shaping up to be the moment everyone had been waiting for, a champion seizing his destiny when the door swings wide open. But tennis doesn't care about narratives. A 19-year-old from Brazil just walked into Court Philippe-Chatrier and shattered the script entirely. Djokovic came into this French Open under unusual circumstances, 3 months away from the tour with a fitness issue that had kept him largely off the court. One preparatory clay match before stepping onto the most demanding Grand Slam surface in the world. By any logical measure, he was underprepared. By any emotional measure, he was motivated beyond words. This was supposed to be his window, perhaps the cleanest window he'd had in years, and he knew it. João Fonseca, meanwhile, knew none of that pressure was his to carry. At 19 years old, you don't walk into a match against the greatest champion in the history of the sport weighed down by expectation. You walk in loose. You walk in with nothing to lose and everything to gain. And that difference, that invisible, unquantifiable difference in mental weight, can move mountains on a tennis court. The opening 2 sets told a familiar story. Djokovic was measured, precise, tactically suffocating. He broke when he needed to, held when it mattered, and closed out both sets 6-4. Everything was going according to plan. The crowd was watching a master at work, and Fonseca, for all his talent, looked like he was being slowly dismantled by someone who had done this thousands of times before. Then something shifted. It's hard to pinpoint the exact moment it happened. Maybe it was a forehand that landed closer to the line than Fonseca expected. Maybe it was a serve that finally started finding its range. Whatever it was, the Brazilian teenager stopped playing like someone who was losing and started playing like someone who believed he could win. And once that belief takes root in a young player with that kind of talent, it becomes almost impossible to dislodge. Fonseca took the third set 6-3. The crowd, which had been politely appreciative, began to stir. Then came the fourth set, tighter, longer, more emotionally charged, with both men trading momentum shifts like punches in a heavyweight bout. Fonseca found a way through 7-5. 4 hours had now passed. The match was level. Everything that had happened before, those comfortable first 2 sets, that sense of Djokovic being in total control, felt like a different match entirely. A 5th set, at Roland Garros, under the lights, with this much on the line, is one of the most electric environments in all of sport. And Djokovic, to his enormous credit, came out and broke first. Even now, even after 3 months away from the tour, even after his body had been through the ringer for over 4 hours on a clay court that takes more out of him than any other surface, he found something extra. He secured the early break. The finish line was in sight. Fonseca didn't flinch. That is perhaps the single most remarkable detail of this entire match. A teenager, playing in the 3rd round of a Grand Slam, staring down a deficit in a 5th set against a man who has won 24 of these things on this court in this city, and he didn't flinch. He clawed back. He held his nerve through the longest games, the most pressurized points, the moments where experience should have overwhelmed youth. He held his nerve and he won 7-5 in the final set. 4 hours and 53 minutes. Final score, 4-6, 4-6, 6-3, 7-5, 7-5 to João Fonseca. The post-match press conference produced one of those moments that will be replayed for a long time. A reporter began to frame a question around what had been going through Djokovic's mind given the bracket opening up, Alcaraz withdrawing, Sinner falling in round 2. It was a reasonable question from a narrative standpoint, but Djokovic had absolutely no patience for it in that moment. Before the reporter could even finish the sentence, with Carlos sidelined and Jannik losing yesterday, did your mind begin to sort of dance and dream and think about the rest? Djokovic cut in. I don't care. I don't care. I'll stop you right there. No, just lost 3rd round. Let's just talk about something else. Thank you. There was no anger in it, not really. There was just the blunt, unfiltered reaction of a competitor who had just spent the better part of 5 hours fighting for something and come up short. The last thing you want in that moment is to be asked about what might have been, what could have been, what you were perhaps already allowing yourself to imagine in quiet moments during the fortnight. When the questions turned to more grounded territory, his level of play, given the circumstances, the injury layoff, arriving at a Grand Slam without proper match preparation, Djokovic was more reflective. He acknowledged that the hours he logged across 3 matches in Paris felt equivalent to an entire clay season compressed into 2 weeks. He said the surface demands more from him than anywhere else, that finding his rhythm on clay takes time he simply hadn't had this year. But he also said something important. He said the level he produced, when measured against everything he had been dealing with, 3 months injured, minimal match practice, no clay tournament rhythm, was genuinely good. Better than he might have expected. There was something in that acknowledgement that went beyond consolation. It felt like a man recalibrating, honestly, not making excuses, just laying out the full picture. Then came the question about next year. Will he be back to challenge for Roland Garros again? And Djokovic, who has answered 10,000 questions about his future with the kind of diplomatic certainty champions are trained to project, simply said, I don't know. 2 words. Quiet, honest, and somehow more powerful than any elaborate answer could have been. He's 39 years old. He has 24 Grand Slam titles. He came back from 3 months on the sidelines, played some of the best tennis of his recent career, and still lost in the 3rd round to a teenager who hadn't yet been born when Djokovic was already turning professional. The question of how many more chapters are left in this story is one that only he can answer, and right now he's choosing not to. As for Fonseca, the dream is very much alive. Next up for the Brazilian is a 4th-round clash with Casper Ruud, a 2-time Roland Garros finalist who knows this tournament, this surface, and these big moments intimately. It will be another enormous test. But after what Fonseca just did, after the way he came back from 2 sets down against the most decorated player in the history of the sport, it is very difficult to bet against him. And if he gets through Ruud, a quarterfinal awaits against either Andrei Rublev or Jakub Mensik. The draw has opened up in extraordinary fashion. The clay court at Roland Garros, the most storied stage in tennis, is waiting to find out whether a 19-year-old from Brazil is ready to take the next step. After what we witnessed today, the honest answer is, don't rule it out.